So hello, I'm Brian Nisbet, Service Operations Manager at HEAnet, the Irish National Research and Education Network, and I'm here to talk to you about the first 15 minutes of incident management. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. All of us work with things that can break. It could be servers, networks, payroll, finance systems, the weather, or the planet. The list goes on. Everything can break, and sometimes things utterly collapse. Yeats, whom I quoted above, lived at a time that really seemed like everything was collapsing, and certainly changing utterly, a time we didn't think we'd see again, yet here we are. But enough with the doom. Let's talk about smaller things breaking, like networks. Incident management plans, which we all have, and honestly, but for copyright reasons, I think this will be a perfect moment for an Anakin and Padme meme, can cover some or all of the above. Depending on the nature of the issue, this may be do what you usually do, or a flowchart, or some immense tome of processes and knowledge that's been blessed by auditors. Every organization is different. However, in HEAnet, what we realized was the big problem wasn't necessarily with finding root causes, nor with fixing them. We really realized the big issues was classifying the incident and communicating appropriately. So I'm going to talk about engineers and client incidents mostly. But remember, this also works for services owned by non-technical teams, which are super important. Payroll, finance systems. In HEAnet, we try to frame our processes around staff and remember that sometimes our staff are the client and they deserve the same treatment as external clients expect. I think this is especially true when you aren't getting paid or indeed things aren't being bought. None of what I'm about to talk about is terribly new, but we've done a lot of thinking about it and maybe some of this might help you. So to make things better with all of this, we worked to put a process in place that specifically addresses the first 15 minutes of an incident. Now, why, you may be asking, 15 minutes? Some of you may remember a talk I gave in a few different places about 60-second SLAs. Now, this all kind of came down to the idea that 60 seconds is about the length of time it takes a user to realize the problem isn't with them and start raising tickets or calls or whatever. So that's kind of the clock you're running against. Now, 60-second SLAs are a catchphrase. They're not something we're expecting or really talking about. But again, it's that whole notion of how long does it take a human being to go, maybe my internet is broken. Maybe my application isn't working. Second reason is that 15 minutes is a human manageable length of time. It's not a length of time that treats humans as machines, nor expects miracles. See above about not actually expecting 60 seconds. But I understand that businesses run on money. But honestly, unless lives are at stake, the response time some companies ask for from their staff are just inhumane. I remember a friend of mine, when I was staying in his house, almost throwing his small child at his wife because he had to respond to a SEV1 for a major internet company. Not a fan. And number three, the phrase first 15 minutes just sounds good. And honestly, look, your timings may vary. You may decide that longer is better, but I would strongly encourage you not to go lower than 15 minutes, nor higher than 30 when we're talking about this kind of thing. So there are three important questions to ask when you're looking at this for yourselves. What are your organizational priorities? What are your clients' priorities? And what are your colleagues' priorities? Obviously, the hope is that most of these priorities align, but it's where they clash or where they seem to align but actually clash, we hit the real problem. You may say that everyone's priority is to fix the issue, and obviously, look, ultimately you'd be right, but that's more of a long-term piece. In the shorter term, your clients want to know that you know there's a problem, that you're working on it, and that you're going to fix it. Your engineers want to fix the problem and know they'll be supported in doing so. and your organization wants to fix the problem, support your engineers, and keep your clients happy. I'm assuming the last bit. I'm really hoping it's the case. I obviously work for an NREN, so I love all of my clients, and we're working for the good guys, no shareholders. It's a wonderful thing. Highly recommend it. So the natural inclination for a lot of engineers is to identify an issue and dive into resolution. Look, this is great. That only aligns with some of the client needs, which in turn means that one of the org's needs isn't being met. Equally, if they just dive in and don't invoke the support systems that are there, they'll be missing one of their needs and one of the org's needs, even though it really seems like the best idea at the time. Taking a few minutes at the beginning of an incident to make the right decisions will pay huge dividends, and all staff need to be supported in doing so. So when someone becomes aware of the incident, they should ask, what's going on and who is affected? But these questions shouldn't be stumbling blocks to what happens next. Because what happens next is that communications need to go out. Using whatever method you use. This could be text, it could be email, it could be smoke signals, do your own thing. I think from the point of view of init 7, it's lightning fast things to everybody's brains. We're looking at how fast Pascal's network is now. But really, you're sending out one of 3 messages as soon as possible. So X thing is broken because Y happened, we're aware and we're working on it. X thing is broken, we're aware and we're working on it. Or something is broken, we're aware and we're investigating it. Really importantly, don't let your lack of precise knowledge stop communication. Be okay with admitting you don't know all the details. And I'm really serious about this. Certainly my clients are vastly happier to know that we know something is broken, to know we're on the case, than to not hear anything from us at all because we're trying to fix it. And look, I could go on about status pages and how they're better than they are these days in a lot of cases, but there's still a lot of improvement. But Fastly during their recent incident managed to update their status page in 11 minutes from the issues starting when they happened in June. It said, we're currently investigating potential impact to performance with our CDN services. That was it. They sent that out with 11 minutes, and people who could reach that page and weren't relying on Fastly for it could see it. So this is exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. The urge to not say anything until more facts are known is endemic in some orgs, across management, engineers, customer service, etc. It is basically every circumstance I can think of, the wrong reaction. If that is something your org does or that one person thinks is a good idea, please, I'll send you a copy of this talk with the subliminals and you can make them watch it over and over and over. Also, honestly, enlightened self-interest. If you send your comms out first, that will mean fewer, notice I said fewer, not no, queries coming to you. My strongest possible advice is that those initial comms shouldn't be the sole responsibility of the staff working on the problem. That's relatively easy in hours, a lot harder out of hours. Staff should feel empowered to pick up the phone and ask for help or to escalate. And once an incident is big enough, escalation should be mandated and they should be answered when they reach out. They should never feel alone because the org doesn't want that. Neither do the staff, of course. In short, one person should not be doing everything because that's never good. So 15 minutes is rarely, if ever, enough time to diagnose and solve a problem. But it is enough time to realize there is a problem, make an initial classification of that problem, reach out for support as necessary, send out initial communications, and start the diagnosis, even when you're woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And when it comes to major incident communication, I'm fairly sure all of our clients, customers, end users, whatever you happen to call them, would agree that being vague and fast is okay. Being somewhat incorrect and fast with those communications is not great, but it's better than being correct and slow, which is definitely not okay. So I would urge you all to consider your own plans, the alignment of needs, and what you're telling your staff, and to try and bring these things together and to use those first 15 minutes in the best possible way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian. We're going to ask for questions in a moment, but before we read out any questions, a poll will be brought up, and this is everyone's only opportunity to rate the talk and the speaker. While we're doing that, if anyone would like to ask a question verbally, they can raise their hand and I'll unmute them, and they can ask Brian direct. Otherwise, people can also ask questions through the Q&A tab in Zoom. So does anyone have a question?
If you think of one later, you can send me messages on Twitter. Handle is there. Either it made no sense or total sense.
There's been quite a lot of discussion in the main UKNOF channel, and it's possible that people are chatting about it on Mattermost. I'll give it another few seconds, and if there are no questions, then I'll hand back to Portia to lead us forward. Thank you very much, Brian, for a fascinating talk that got a lot of support on Mattermost.
Cool. Thank you very much.